Being a rebuilding team is like playing whack-a-mole. You think you've solved one problem, another one pops up, the old problem comes back. It's hard to get everything in place. And the Magic are in the middle of their round. And very, very clearly, they have not won a whole bunch of tickets. We're at the All-Star break. Let's talk about the Magic's loss to the Atlanta Hawks on today's Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is February 17th, 2022. My name is Phil Rossman-Reich. I'm the expert and site editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, the Orlando Magic have lost their defense and lost a big part of the progress they made this year. How that played out in Wednesday's loss to Atlanta Hawks, how that's played out recently, and what it means for the Magic moving forward. We'll get to all that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you all for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's right when we upload, first thing in the morning, at work, at home, wherever. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, you can check out all the great podcasts on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're searching every download podcast for Locked On and the team you're looking for. The Locked On Podcast Network, it's your team every day. Today's podcast also brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. The final score of Wednesday's game against the Atlanta Hawks was 130-109. And 130 is a lot of points. A lot more than usual. Yes, this is an offense-driven league. Yes, the scores are a lot higher than they've been maybe in a while, but you got to do something really wrong to give up 130 points. And honestly, the final deficit, we've talked a lot how some of the final deficits feel a little bit fake. That 21-point deficit probably is not how badly the Magic were beaten. They didn't do that spirited comeback that they always do, but they definitely did not deliver the kind of game that the Magic are hoping to have, and certainly the kind of game they wanted to go into the break with. The fact of the matter is, the bottom line is, it felt like at the end of that homestand for the Orlando Magic that they were turning something of a corner, that they were playing better defensively, that they were kind of figuring out who they want to be. And in some ways, yes, the Magic still are. And we'll get to some of that a little bit later. But at the very, very heart of who the Magic are trying to be and the kind of team the Magic are trying to build is their defense. They talked about it a ton during training camp. They talked about it a ton throughout the course of the season. Jamal Mosley is a defensive coach, a defensive coordinator from the Dallas Mavericks, a guy who has really spoken a ton about the need for the defense to be the backstop, for the team to always be able to rely on its defense. And that's not something the team has been able to do over the last 10 or so games, throughout the month of February, really, throughout this whole entire month. The Hawks put a number on the Orlando Magic, just a complete deconstruction. As both Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony said after the game, the Hawks were too comfortable. They were able to do whatever they wanted throughout the course of the game. And the Magic were able to do very little to stop them. There was no physicality. Any physicality came with a foul, so the Magic were kind of put on their back heels a little bit by that. But there was none of the physicality. There was none of the things that the Magic needed to do to dictate a chance to win. The Magic gave up 130 points, 50% shooting overall, 18 for 35 from beyond the arc. The Hawks posted a 128.7 offensive rating. And while the Hawks certainly hit plenty of contested shots too, this was a still good offensive game for Atlanta. Orlando's defense did very little else to stop them. There are a lot of open shots too. There were a lot of moments where Trae Young drove into the lane and just did whatever he wanted. And the Magic were frankly powerless to stop it. The Magic were frankly just not able to get themselves there. This is just, again, Atlanta's a good three-point shooting team. Atlanta's a good offensive team. The loss doesn't bother me, and it's been this way throughout the course of the season, or at least for this month. The losses don't bother me as much as the effort and attention to detail. At the end of the day, yes, this season is not about wins and losses. This season is not about the team's record. I'm not so concerned with where the team finishes in the standing because we know what this season's about. But, and I'm just holding the Magic to their own standard here. The Magic have said that this is also about development, that this is also a season about the team improving and getting better as the season progresses, as the season advances, as they look ahead to their future. And progress is rarely linear. There's going to be starts and stops. There's going to be step backs. There's going to be steps forward. But after the Magic played an incredible defensive January, after the Magic played so well for those 15 games in January, a small but decent sample size, it felt like the Magic were ready to take a step up. And a step back might have happened. They might not have been as good as they were in January, but it shouldn't feel like they're starting from square one, especially now that they have relative health. January really was a revelation for this team. In 15 games in January, the Magic were 8th in the league with a 107.8 defensive rating. That's nearly 5 points per 100 possessions better than the team's season average. So regardless of what you might think of what the Magic did in January, and again, the Magic only won 4 games. They were 4-11 in January. So they still had a lot of issues. And we'll talk a little bit more about how they solved some of those issues, get back to that. The Magic showed they can play really strong defense for a long stretch of time, for at least a medium stretch of time. That, to me, that is meaningful. To me, that was meaningful. But in 9 games in February, the Magic are giving up 117 points per 100 possessions. They're still 27th in the league, so they're not the worst defense in the league, even with how bad they're playing. But to go from 107.8 to 117, that's a huge difference. That is a huge step back. I'd expect them to come back down to their average at around 112. And honestly, that would still, to me, be considered, okay, they took a little bit of a step back. Maybe the schedule stiffened up a little bit. Maybe they're playing some tougher opponents. Maybe they've lost some of the rhythm they had. But now they're back to their average. They're back to their mean. So still ways that they can grow. Instead, they've gone well below it. Like their average right now should be their floor, and it's not. After doing so well defensively, Orlando is just struggling to meet the standard that they've set for themselves. In their last 10 games, the Magic have had only 2 games with a defensive rating better than 110, and those were the wins against the Pistons and the win against the Blazers. Now, again, the Hawks are a really good team, a really good offensive team especially. Trae Young is a special talent that demands attention, and Orlando gave him the attention he deserved. He made some great plays, just some highlight reel-worthy plays against the Magic, and even with good defense, they would have been they would have had a very hard time beating him. But at the end of the day, this team has made it clear they are about their defense. This team has made it clear they want their defense to lead the way. They want their defense to be the guiding force for this group. And right now it isn't. Right now, the defense is not doing its job. And right now, the defense is not the way the Magic want to play. And it's going to be hard to do anything else without that. This team is a defensive team. They have one of the worst offenses in the league. And I'll talk about some of the positives we've seen from the offense here in a bit. But this is not a team that's going to rely on its offense. They need offense to win. I'm not disputing that. But this group, as constructed, they're going to make their hay on defense. Getting steals, getting turnovers, getting out in transition, especially with the way they've been playing recently. Doing all that stuff will help them. But as they've said before, and again, this is just a standard they're holding themselves. As they've said before, their defense has to lead the way. And the fact of the matter is the Magic just aren't going to win many games playing defense the way they're playing defense right now. And that's why they got blown out by the Atlanta Hawks, because as the numbers show, as some very positive signs show, Magic's offense is actually starting to figure it out a little bit, maybe, kind of. We'll talk a little bit about that and how the whack-a-mole has revealed a new problem, or this new problem has arisen as the Magic have seemingly solved another one. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But first, a quick word from our pals at BetOnline. Football might be over for the season. I know, very, very sad. But basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast with nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. So like I said, the Magic's defense has kind of hit a rough spot. It's hit a crater. And I hope that the Magic are able to kind of enter the All-Star break, take a breath. I know I need to take a breath as well. It's kind of why I took yesterday off, among many reasons. But just take a breath, kind of reset the battery. They'll have a few practices heading into next Friday's game against the Houston Rockets. It'll be a chance to kind of reset the batteries. And I think that's really, really important for this young team. I think everybody needs to break. I think everybody needs it. And we'll get into what I think this last quarter plus of the season is going to be really about for the Magic. Next week, we'll dive back into the team a little bit later next week. I have some thoughts about how the Magic need to use the rest of the season. But at the same time, the Magic's offense is starting to make signs of progress. It's starting to show some legs and some beats of life. Even in Wednesday's game against the Atlanta Hawks, the Magic did some good things. They turned miscues into fast break points, 24 in the game. They outscored the Hawks 56-46 in the paint. So even though the Magic struggled to shoot 42%, I think that they got down. They tried to rush back into the game. They tried to do too much to get back in the game instead of going play by play. And certainly stop by stop. That's why Orlando let the deficit grow. But there have been a lot of positive signs offensively. The three-point shooting is becoming a little bit better and a little bit more precise and a little bit more of what the Magic are looking to do. But more than that, the Magic's pace is way up. It's a point that I've noted in my preview posts on OrlandoMagicDaily.com is Orlando starting to play at a much faster pace. Really at the pace that I think they ultimately want to play, but they want to play at a faster pace. They want players to pick up the speed. And Jamal Mosley actually said after the game that he thinks one of the reasons why the Magic's defense has slipped so much is they have put a little bit more emphasis on playing with pace, a little bit more emphasis on getting out in transition, and playing at that faster pace creates a little bit more of a breakneck game, a little bit of a looser game, and learning how to play defense at a slower pace while playing offense at a faster pace is certainly a major challenge for young teams. You typically do see the teams that try to run a lot, that play at those faster paces with those higher possession totals. They certainly give up more points because there's more possessions, but they also tend to struggle a little bit more defensively. Just think the Charlotte Hornets right now. I think they play at the fastest pace in the league. They also have one of the worst defenses in the league. Their 112.2 defensive rating is around where the Magic are at. Again, you also look at some of the other teams that are fast paced. The Houston Rockets, second in the league in pace, 116.2 points allowed per 100 possessions. They're very similar to the Magic in that front. The San Antonio Spurs are actually playing at a fast pace. They give up 110. Their defense is actually pretty good. So you do see that, especially with young teams that play at a fast pace. And the Magic are certainly one of those teams. The Magic have risen to 10th in the league in pace, 99.4 possessions per 48 minutes. And again, when Jamal Mosley says pace, he's not necessarily talking about the possession numbers, but it is a sign that the Magic are playing at a faster pace. And while their offense has certainly lagged still, 103.8 points per 100 possessions, they're starting to pick things up. When you look at pace over the last 10 games, the Magic are second in the league in pace at 102.4 possessions, per 48 minutes. Their offensive rating has risen to 105.7. So they're up about 2.5 points per 100 possessions on offense. Obviously, like I said, their defense is cratered. And even in January, when their defense was really good, the Magic had the worst offense in the league, by far, the worst offensive rating in the league. I think they're at like 102. So the reason why they weren't able to win when their defense was playing so well was because they couldn't score. Now they're scoring. In their last 10 games, they've also got a 51.9% effective field goal percentage. That's still 23rd in the league, but for a team that's struggled to shoot all year, that's one of the worst shooting teams in the league. Climbing above that mythical 50% mark is a bit of an accomplishment. Not one that we celebrate, but one that we note, considering where the team was at. They're no longer one of the teams with an effective field goal percentage below 50%. What am I all saying with this? In terms of Wednesday's game, Orlando did good things. I want to make that clear. Like, Orlando played some really good offense, especially the first half. I thought Orlando did a good job with pace. I thought Orlando did a good job kind of not controlling themselves, but did a good job looking for opportunities to get on the break, looking for opportunities to score. They weren't able to kind of keep up with the Hawks, but they kept them within distance. If their defense could ever figure things out, they would have been fine. In fact, in the first half of the game, as I pull up my book here, the Magic shot 46.7% from the floor. They were 7 for 21 from three. The three-pointers were the big difference. Atlanta had 13 threes at the half. They ended up with 18 for the game. It wasn't that Orlando was getting left behind, but they had 53 points at the half. And for this team, that should be enough to at least be in the game. I mean, that tells you how bad the Magic's defense was they were trying to outscore Atlanta, and this team ain't going to outscore Atlanta. This team is not outscoring the Hawks. They're too good offensively. Again, this is why defense is so important for this team and so important for what the Magic are trying to do. But the Magic did good things. They got out in transition. They got into the paint. And all of that went away in the second half. As the deficit grew, Orlando didn't let go of the rope. I think they were still playing hard, but they got frustrated. It happens to everybody. And they were trying to get it all back in one swoop. They're trying to get back into the game way too quickly without being able to kind of get them ease themselves back into the game. And that's really the difference in this one. That was really the difference in this one. Again, at the end of the day, the Magic have to defend. If they're going to win games, if they're going to compete, they have to defend because everything else doesn't matter. Again, yes, the Magic need a somewhat competent offense. Their defense is not good enough to win games by itself, but it's good enough to give them chances to win games. And again, that's the level, that's the state the Magic have to get themselves to again consistently. They have to be able to compete. They have to be able to put themselves in position to win games. And it has to be their defense leading the way. Their offense cannot do it by themselves. And that much was abundantly clear with how the Magic were unable to keep up with the Hawks. And obviously, they let go of the rope with the game plan in the second half on both sides of the floor, and that's how you end up down 30. These teams are too good to lose by 30 unless they do something wrong. Again, like I always say, losing by 30 says less about the winning team and more about the losing team because it's usually the losing team that does something to go down by that much. So the Magic lose to head to the All-Star break. It feels like they've got a lot of issues that they still have to resolve. And obviously we knew they would. Like, it's not like we're surprised that the Magic are struggling in some areas, but I think the big thing that the Magic are looking for, the big thing that the Magic have to focus on as they get into the All-Star break, as they prepare to come out of the All-Star break next week, is finding consistency, is, what are we good at? Let's just be good at that, and we'll figure the rest out later because that's progress. That's taking steps forward, and the Magic obviously still have a lot of steps to take. We'll go over that final box score, talk a little bit more about Wednesday's game coming up here in just a moment. But first, this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? Well, you have a computer with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. So save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain, store, or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for more than 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. Let's go over the final box scores. The Orlando Magic fall to the Atlanta Hawks 130 to 109, with the Detroit Pistons defeating the Boston Celtics. The Magic do enter the All-Star break with the worst record in the league again. They have played 2 more games than the Pistons, so that will change. That will change again. Obviously, the Magic still have 2 games against the Thunder. They open back up against the Rockets. They've got the Pacers twice at the Amway Center coming up next week as well. Coming up in a couple weeks as well. I've been previewing this. We'll talk more about this, I think, a little bit next week before the season kicks back up again. The Magic schedule is really favorable after the All-Star break. They play a lot of home games after the All-Star break. Their schedule does lighten up. They still have the Suns and the Warriors to come to the Amway Center. So again, no game is easy, but the Magic do have one of the easier schedules, at least by opponent record, remaining in the league, and a lot of home games. So there is an opportunity for major growth here. We'll talk more about that next week as we exit the All-Star break. But let's go through the final box score here for the Orlando Magic as they fall to the Atlanta Hawks. The good news for Orlando is Cole Anthony is starting to find himself again. Another really solid game, offensively, at least 23 points, 9 for 16 shooting, 2 for 5 from deep, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 turnovers for him. Magic had 13 turnovers for 15 Atlanta points. I really, again, Cole Anthony's defense certainly leaves something to be desired. He knows he has to improve on the defensive end. I don't think that's a secret. But seeing him hit those mid-range jumpers, seeing him hit those pull-up jumpers, seeing him kind of get back into a good offensive flow is really, really encouraging. Cole knows that he struggled through January. He knows that the injuries were really slowing him down. So I think it's been really good to see Cole kind of pick up that speed that he had at the beginning of the season. Certainly that fire from the beginning of the season has waned. I talked to plenty of fans who asked me a lot of questions about what Cole Anthony's future is, like what do we make of the season? And again, I'm usually more for let's let the season play out before we start trying to make conclusions or we try to make statements. A lot of this season is about figuring out what Cole Anthony's limitations are, and then showing him what he needs to work on in the offseason. And there's a lot to work on. It's hard to remember. This is just his second season. Again, you want to start seeing some established trends. You want to see him get into a more comfortable and established role than maybe what the Magic have for him now. You want to see him play with Markelle Fultz because you do want to know how that fit works and how he works with that. But I think Cole is starting to kind of get back into that comfortable groove offensively that he was in early in the year. Again, maybe not the explosiveness, but still a really solid game for him. Jalen Suggs, 19 points, 6 for 19 shooting, 0 for 4 from deep, 7 for 8 from the foul line, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, just 1 turnover. Honestly, I would say this was one of, not Suggs' worst games, but worst games in a while. Just because, I think we were starting to raise the bar on what he could do. And, I think this was a game where he struggled defensively against Trae Young, and he's a rookie. He's been a really good defender this year. This was a difficult game for him. He really got kind of crossed up by Trae Young a few times and just couldn't really find his groove defensively to slow him down. Again, the Hawks were really comfortable all game. That starts with the 2-point guards, obviously. So I think defensively that has to be something the Magic are concerned with or just were understood that was a part of this game. But I think Suggs needs to start hitting outside shots. That's going to be the biggest thing that he improves upon this offseason is just being able to hit 3-pointers consistently. But B, I think with the Magic playing at a faster pace, Jalen Suggs has been a big part of that. But I think, he's a rookie and he's still trying to understand and learn how to control his tempo and control his speed so that he's not out of control, that he's not going too fast, that he's not kind of drawing the Magic in or drawing the Magic into trouble spots throughout the course of the season. I think that is still the biggest thing that the Magic have to worry about with Jalen Suggs is he can kind of play himself out of control sometimes. And so, when he's out of control, when he's just attacking the basket, just kind of like a bullet and misses, that hurts the team defensively. That gets the team, going up and down, back and forth, and doesn't allow their defense to get set. So again, this is normal stuff for a rookie. I don't think it's a point for concern, but he's got to play a little bit better on that front. Wendell Carter with a rough game, with a decent game, actually. 10 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 for 7 shooting, 2 for 3 from deep. Probably a little bit too much on the outside for him. I thought that he did some good things. Again, Wendell Carter just has to be aggressive. He has to be looking for a shot a little bit more, and the Magic have to do more to set him up. If there's a criticism of this Magic team, it's that they don't set up the right guys. That again, you see Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony at 16 and 19 shots, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but the shot distribution definitely is a little bit off, it feels like, for the Magic. It feels like Wendell Carter should be much more involved in the offense. He's obviously a great passer, so they run a lot of stuff through him and trust him to make good decisions. Franz Wagner, only 9 shots, 5 for 9 shooting for 12 points in this one. Did not seem like Franz was involved at all at key moments. It felt like the Magic were kind of isolated on the other side of the floor. Atlanta's not that good of a defensive team. The Magic have to make sure that they're managing the game a little bit better, making sure guys get shots when they need it. And a lot of Franz's shots honestly came in transition. They weren't setups in the half court. Mo Bamba, decent game as well. 11 points, 9 rebounds, 5 for 10 shooting. Mo, we're going to talk about the lineup, I think, coming out of the All-Star break. I don't want to go too deep into it. Mo was a +0, +- in this game, but a lot of that coming late in the game when the game was already decided. In the fourth quarter, as the Magic cut a 30-point lead down to 21 to the 21 final margin. He's just struggling defensively. He should be a bigger presence in the paint. And I think we should expect him to be a bigger presence in the paint. And we know the presence that Wendell Carter can give. Carter right now is chasing Danilo Gallinari on the perimeter, or DeAndre Hunter on the perimeter. That does not feel like the right use of the Magic's resources, of the Magic's players. And that's, I think, the central conundrum for the Magic as they enter the All-Star break, as they prepare to exit the All-Star break and start thinking about the kind of lineups they want to build for their future. Unlike recent games, the Magic got very, very little from their bench. Chuma Okeke, 7 points, 1 for 7 shooting from deep, 3 for 10 from beyond the arc. Chuma's had a lot of these games where he takes a lot of shots, takes a lot of threes. When he makes a bunch of them, it feels like he's playing really well. When he doesn't, it feels like a little bit of a drain on the bench. Gary Harris, 9 points, 3 for 8 shooting from deep. Just not a very impactful game for him. Terrence Ross, his minutes have started to dwindle. Only 4 points, 2 for 7 shooting, 17-13 in the game. So a frustrating season continues for Terrence Ross. Admiral Schofield had some nice run. 8 points, 3 for 7 shooting, 2 for 4 from deep. Schofield is making a very good impression on this team. But again, it's hard to know how to value his minutes. The Magic shoot 42.9% from floor, just 13 of 41 from beyond the arc, just 12 of 13 from the foul line. The Hawks shoot 50% from the floor, 18 for 33 from deep, 22 for 28 from the foul line. Orlando commits 19 fouls for 28 free throws. That tells you a lot of the way the Magic were defending, at least how the Magic were officiated. Trae Young with 22 points on 5 for 13 shooting. He had 6 assists, so made 4 or 5 threes. He was struggling to make threes against this Magic team throughout the season. Orlando did some good things on Trae Young, but he was able to get others involved. Bogdanovich, 23 points, 9 for 13 shooting, 4 for 6 from deep, 6 assists for him. DeAndre Hunter had 14. Kevin Huerter had 15. Danilo Gallinari with 11. The Hawks were able to kind of build up the momentum that they needed to get the win and really just push the Magic around, as Orlando just was not able to get stops. The Atlanta Hawks defeat the Orlando Magic 130-109. The Magic are now on the All-Star break. They'll be back in action next Friday against the Houston Rockets. But I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You can, of course, find us on Twitter at Locked On Magic. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun places to download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can find me on Twitter at PhilipR_MD. And, of course, for the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. I'll have complete coverage throughout All-Star Weekend as the Orlando Magic get ready for the Rising Stars game, as well as Cole Anthony and the dunk contest. We'll have a lot more big-time thoughts now that we get a chance to take a breath here at the All-Star break. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Now that you're done listening to us, go check out the Locked On Bets podcast, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Again, that's going to do it for me. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. See you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.